Aside from roadside explosives and Taliban and Al-Qaeda fighters, NATO forces in Afghanistan are increasingly under attack by a new foe, friendly Afghan forces. 2 more U.S. troops were shot yesterday in an insider shooting episode, bringing the total to a dozen soldiers in just over a week. And as RT's Gayane Chichakyan now reports, this is a problem that multi-billion-dollar defense projects just can't solve.
The ads for military hardware in the U.S. look like Hollywood blockbuster trailers. Whether it's for a tactical armed drone which can fit into a backpack, or for special robot-like clothing for soldiers.
They sense what the user wants to do, where the user wants to go, and mimics the motion. We like to call these man-autonomous systems.
But many ask why, with all the high-tech gear, the U.S. can't win against men of simple means from some remote Afghan villages. A U.S. Marine general estimated that 80% of his troops' casualties in Afghanistan were caused by homemade bombs, components of which often cost no more than a few dollars. Jake DeLiberto served in Afghanistan at the beginning of the war.
The MRAPs and the armored Humvees cost millions of dollars, and they're destroyed by something that costs the price of a pizza. We don't have any effective weapons to combat that animosity, that rage against American presence. There's no such thing. It's sort of like if the Chinese moved into, Wyoming. Are you somehow Wyoming's going to be happy? No, not at all. There's no way to. They just simply want them to leave.
The U.S. invests in military gear more than the world's 10 other biggest military spenders combined. The Pentagon resists cuts in their gigantic budget, arguing that they need to fight terrorists in other places.
We continue to face very serious security challenges in the world of today. We are still at war in Afghanistan. We still confront terrorism, even though there's been significant damage to the leadership of Al-Qaeda. The reality is we confront terrorism in Somalia, in Yemen, in North Africa.
The U.S. is extensively using drones to go after who they identify as terrorists. But will there ever be enough weapons to kill terrorists?
Let's look at Anwar al-Awlaki before he was assassinated by a drone. Did we stop Al-Qaeda on the Arabian Peninsula? Did we stop Al-Qaeda's march on Yemen? No, we did not. We actually, in many ways, made it worse by the fact that others besides al-Awlaki were targeted and killed in that same campaign, civilians. We invest in the military hardware of destruction, which obviously perpetuates the cycle of killing. Kill 5, 10 come back. You've got to have more hardware to kill that 10.
Retired Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Sheffer says the Pentagon's obsession with military resources hasn't changed since the time when their enemy was the Soviet Union.
It was all about the numbers. It was all very accountable regarding hardware purchases, how many missiles can you have, how many can you defeat. It was all very binary, this or that, this or that. It was a match, force on force. In today's war, it's not like that. There's no force-on-force equation. There's no way of measuring the number of tanks that will take care of the Taliban, because the Taliban doesn't use tanks. They don't need them. And so this is where our current paradigm, the U.S. paradigm on war, is completely outdated.
All those fancy weapons certainly project power. But in real warfare, in Afghanistan, for example, all that advanced gadgetry still hasn't delivered victory. Some argue it's because while spending tremendous amounts of money on military gear, the U.S. has failed to fully understand their enemy and what motivates them to fight. I'm Gayane Chichakyan in Washington, RT.